spending plans, also known as a budget. So spending plan is a way to look at our income and our expenses at a certain period of time. It's also going to be called a budget, and it's going to record the actual income and the expenses over that certain time period. So looking at this example we have on the slide, this is just one way to set up a spending plan. They do not all look like this, but we are going to see our planned amount as well as our actual amount. So we're going to see how much we plan to spend in this month and then how much we actually spent on all of these items in this month. Some of the reasons that a spending plan or a budget is important for financial planning and financial management is that it's just overall going to help you manage your money in a much more positive way. So being able to see how much I'm spending in each area, maybe adjust it so that I can increase my net worth, so that I can achieve my goals. And then it's also going to help us when we're looking at our opportunity costs and our trade-offs. So if I know that, for example, maybe I wanted to spend $100 at eating at restaurants this month, but really I spent $200. That extra $100 came from something. So what did I give up in order to spend that extra $100 eating out at restaurants? Did I take money from my entertainment budget? Did I take money from my grocery budget? Where did I find that money to eat out more? And then in this box where you're drawing the line, we have 3 different ways and money management tools that we're going to describe. So we have the statement of financial position. That's going to be our snapshot of our financial position today. So maybe what have I spent in the last 24 hours? Where are my bank balances at? And then we have our income and expense statement. And this is going to be looking into the past. So how have I managed my money? What have I spent my money on in the past? Maybe the past month, maybe the past 6 months. And then we have our budget or our spending plan, which is looking forward into the future about how I'm going to manage my money. We're going to skip through some of these slides and we will come back to it in a little bit. So we have 5 steps to our spending plan development process. We have 3 steps that are about developing the spending plan, and then 2 steps that are about maintaining. So we can track our current income and expenses using that income and expense statement. We can personalize our spending plan and allocate our money while we are developing it. And then once we implement it and evaluate it, that's when we are in the maintaining stage. So tracking our current income and expenses. This is going to be completed by developing an income and an expense statement. So maybe we are looking at our bank statements and seeing where in the last 30 days or 31 days have I spent my money. What are the different categories for where I've spent my money? And this is important because this is ensuring us that we are spending a realistic amount in each of our categories. So if for the last 6 months I have spent $300 a month on groceries, then it does not make sense for me to change that to $50 a month. I know that I'm going to need more than that. It's not realistic to think that I'm going to feed myself off $50 a month for groceries. So it makes sure that we are being realistic based on our spending habits in the past. Like I said, we're going to skip past some of this, and then we're going to come back to it when we think about our Brown family spending plan. So then we have step 2, and this is about personalizing our spending plan. So we're going to ask ourselves these 3 questions. How will we develop our spending plan? What is the time period that our budget is designed for? And then what categories are we going to include? And those are all right here in this step 2 box. So the first question, we have 4 methods that we could use to develop our spending plan. So we could do it on paper, we could use an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, or we could pay for money management software on our computer. Or in the modern world, we have about 1,000 different types of apps that we could download on our phone to help create a budget that is easily accessible. I would say that in general, a majority of people are either going to use the Excel spreadsheet or they're going to use an app on their phone, depending on how dedicated they are to their budget. For the intended time period for our plan, most people are going to do it concurrently with their pay period. So if you get paid on the first of the month, then your budget would likely start on that first day and it would go through the end of the month. If you don't get paid till the middle of the month, then most of the time your budget would then be from the middle of month 1 to the middle of month 2. And then what categories do we include on our spending plan? We're going to reference that income and expense statement. So we're going to look at those bank statements and we're going to see where we have spent money in the past. And we're going to break those down into categories. So if I have spent money at 6 different fast food restaurants this month, I'm going to break that out into eating out at restaurants and make that one category. And then I would add all of those numbers up and see how much I spent eating out at restaurants. And everybody's categories are going to be different. It really just depends on where you're spending your money every month. Step 3 is going to be about allocating our money. So we're going to reference the tracking that we created in step 1, and we're going to determine what changes we need to make. So how much did I spend last month? What changes do I need to make this month in order to meet my goals? And we're going to do this in 3 different ways. So we're going to consider our trade-offs and our opportunity costs. We're going to consider our goals that we want to achieve, and we're going to consider what we call contractual expenses. So contractual expenses are things that you are required to pay. You have signed a contract saying that you will pay X amount of dollars on a certain day of the month, and you are not going to miss those payments. There are going to be consequences for these payments, and they are not easy or sometimes impossible to reduce or eliminate. So for example, if you do not pay your rent, you signed a contract, they will kick you out of your home. If you don't pay your internet or your cell phone bill, you signed a contract and they will shut off those services. And then we have non-contractual expenses. And so those are going to be things that are easier to reduce or even potentially eliminate. So things like how much you're spending at the grocery store. You could change from name brand items to generic items to save some money. How much you're spending out at restaurants, how much you're spending on entertainment. Those things are easy to adjust. This is a general guide to how much you should be spending each month, no matter what your income level is like. You should not be spending any more than 30% on your housing, 20% on your transportation, so how much you have to pay for your auto loan, for any repairs or maintenance, gasoline. So about 50% of your income should go towards your housing and your transportation. And then the other 50% is going to be broken up into saving and investing, paying for your insurance, paying for food, and then paying for some miscellaneous or entertainment items. Saving and investing goes back to the concept of paying yourself first. So whenever I get my paycheck, I'm going to make sure that I deposit 10% of my pay into my savings account or into a way that I'm going to invest it. Or that way I'm not running out at the end of the month. I know that I have saved a little bit at least. And then the last thing we're going to look at with step 3 is going to be whether we have a net gain or a net loss. A net gain means that we have some money left over at the end of the month, and we're going to take this money and we're going to add it into other areas or into, onto other expenses or into our savings account. We don't necessarily need or want leftover money at the end of the month. And then we could also have a net loss, meaning that we are spending more than we are making. If you are in a situation where you have a net loss, you have 3 different options. So you could increase your income. You could either get a second job or a better paying job. You could decrease your expenses, so change the amount that you're spending to lower them in various ways, or you could do both. For the scenario we're going to go over, that's not realistic that we could do both. And now we're going to look at steps 4 and 5. Step 4 is implementation. So we're going to make those decisions that we have already planned. I know how much I want to spend this month because I pre-planned it last month. And now I'm going to actually make those decisions. So I'm going to be faced with a lot of choices, and I'm going to make the right choices based on what I planned. And we're going to try and use a control system to stay on track. So we have 5 control systems that we're going to address. So we could have, let me move this out of the way. Maybe I'll move it out of the way. Either way, we are going to potentially have some money management software. So determining how we are going to manage our money, we could download something on our computer. We could find one on the internet. Most banks or depository institutions will have a program or maybe an app that helps you track your expenses. You could use a check register system. I'm assuming that none of you are going to be doing that. This may be something that your parents, and if not your parents, probably definitely your grandparents are used to doing. The check register that comes with your checkbook, a lot of people, even if they're not writing checks, will use this to track their expenses because it's all coming out of the same bank account. Or we have the envelope system. There is kind of a personal finance guru named Dave Ramsey, and he promotes this envelope system. So at the beginning of the month, I might put an envelope titled Eating Out at Restaurants. I'm going to put $100 into that envelope. Once I have spent all of that cash, I no longer have any more money to eat out at restaurants. So I've kind of just used all of my money, whether I spent that in the first week or if it lasted the entire month. That is the max amount of money I can spend in that area. And then we have step 5. And evaluating is important because it's going to be able to help us determine if our spending plan or our budget worked. It's going to tell us if we are on track to meet our goals, and it's going to tell us if we need to make any adjustments. So do I need to change anything going into next month? And that is where our note guide ends. You should be working on the Brown family spending plan, which I have discussed in class.